Hey there, everybody. Welcome to RPG Fan After Dark. Not really. I just have this sexy voice because I am very sick and under the weather, and I've lost my voice tonight. Super fun. Therefore, I'm not going to give you too much in the way of news at the beginning of this episode, and we're just going to go into episode 175 right after this word from our sponsors. I'm kidding, we don't have sponsors. That's crazy talk. Anyways, enjoy this episode.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Random Encounter. I'm Greg Delmage, I'm your host. I'm here with some silly peoples. We've been having a silly fun time on the pre-show, so we're all warmed up and ready to go. But if you need to yell at me about anything, you can find me on social media at Greg Delmage and GDelme on the Discord. And over here, let's turn it over to Joe Padilla. Happy Thanksgiving, Joe. Welcome, Joe Padilla.
Well, thank you, Greg. Happy past Canadian Thanksgiving to you.
It was a while ago.
Yes.
Where can folks find you on the line?
Folks can find me. I'm one of the social media editors, so you can find me on Facebook and Twitter for RPG Fan, and then personally, you can find me on the Discord and on Twitter and Instagram as @QueersForFears.
Every time. I love it. And we also have someone else who is not celebrating Thanksgiving, just like me. We're both working schmoes. Alana, Hagues.
Ooh, hey. Hello, everyone. It's like, I didn't know what else to
assuming they all said hi. Why did no one answer me?
I know. This is terrible.
Listeners, you're all rude.
Yeah, I know. Yes, no Thanksgiving over here. We don't really have an equivalent. I'm going to say Easter, but that was a long time ago, so... Yeah.
Oh yeah, Alana was sharing in our work Slack here at RPG Fan that a crime has been committed in her life where she has not had pumpkin pie.
I know.
What?
Yeah, pumpkin pie is not a thing in the UK. Pumpkins are not eaten very regularly in the UK, which is a crime. I have at least eaten pumpkin before, and it is great, but not pumpkin pie.
That's good.
Yeah.
Y'all colonized the United States, and you didn't bring back pumpkins?
I know. I know.
They just went and made it into juice, apparently, if Harry Potter is to be believed. Which I did not try when I went to Hagues. I just had butterbeer, but I didn't have that. But before I segue into life's adventures, Alana, where can folks find you on the social media? Should you want to share that?
Yeah, well, the best place to find me is on Twitter. I am at Alana Hagues. On the Discord, I pop up occasionally as Diving Falcons, and I have an email address as well if you're very traditional. You can email me for any of your reviews needs at alanah@rpgfan.com. Those are probably the three best places to find me.
It's true, and you work stupidly hard with reviews, and thank you for that, because, yeah, our site is the better for it.
Well, thank you, everybody, for everything you will do, because you both, in particular, are wonderful people.
Oh, thank you. This is what Thanksgiving's about, people. Being thankful for the folks that you have around you. It's a good time to kind of take stock of that. We are chatting a bit about that because there's obviously dubious beginnings of Thanksgiving traditionally, but I don't know. I've always taken the past, I want to say 5 or 6 years now. I've been doing it where I just try and make a point of telling everybody like how thankful I am for them and why. And it is mushy and dumb, and I get made fun of it by my wife every single year, but she also deep down loves it. So she's just like, thank you for being stupid and mushy. We all like hearing that you're thankful for all of us and our family, and I love you, and I'm thankful for you too. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, definitely. Despite the, as you said, dubious origin, it's never a bad day to one, not have work, and two, to let people know that they matter to you.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah, exactly. And whether it's the family you choose or the family that you were born with, there's always hopefully somebody in your life that you are thankful to have around. I am thankful that we saved a ton of money and went to Disneyland recently. So again, listeners, sorry for a late episode. As you saw, my wonderful cheesy postcard I made for you all. I was wandering through the various lands of Disney, and it was fantastic. And especially the little boy in me became a little boy once again walking into Galaxy's Edge. I'm not going to spoil too much for anybody who plans to go there, because it is just a wonder if you get to any either Disneyland or Disney World and go into Galaxy's Edge and you're a Star Wars fan. Oh, just the immersion of it as you slowly get into it is incredible, and it's just, they do a great job. And it was just great remembering that I love Disney. Like I was a kid again. It was the first time for me going to Disneyland, and it was my daughter Gwen's first time. So we both kind of were both like, oh my gosh this, oh my gosh that. I haven't been to Disney World since I was 9, so it's been a while, and they do such a good job of doing what Walt Disney wanted, which was making a place that's fun for kids and adults. It's like, it's perfect. Like there's just something in it for anyone, and you fully enjoy it. Like I know these are people in suits and costumes, but I'm fully talking to them like they're Mickey or Chip and Dale, and just letting them do what they do. And they're all wonderful and patient and just great with everybody, because they got to go through a lot and put up with a lot, and they just make the experience so magical. It was great. It was very rewarding, very busy 5 days of walking like 12 plus kilometers a day. Wow. And Gwen kept up, which was amazing. We opened and shut the park down one day, which was
wow.
Yeah, getting up at 6 a.m. or 6:30 a.m. and basically getting there and starting off at like 8 and going right till like 10 p.m. Wow. And she was there the whole time for it.
Aw, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was super great. So that's where I was, and being very busy and now trying to get back into real life that isn't Disney. But I will say I bought a lightsaber, and I'm pretty happy about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep,
well,
that was my big buy. It was, it's awesome. Well, and I had one that she had gotten from friends back, like, I think Euro Disney. They got her, like, I think it's Anakin's lightsaber. And I was like, well, you got one. I should get one, right?
Yeah.
So, that was my big purchase.
So which lightsaber was it?
Well, I didn't go for a character one. I spent the money on actually doing the experience where you build your own.
Oh.
Which is a very cool thing. Yeah. So they have the, if you're walking around Galaxy's Edge and the First Order approaches you, you're just going to the scrap shop. That's all. It's just a scrap shop, because Jedi stuff is illegal. But once you get in, you have a selection of like 4 different types of lightsaber kind of flavors, for lack of a better term right now. So there's like power and control, there's elemental / nature. I went with the one I think was justice and defense, and then there's another one that I can't think of what it is, but they all basically are kind of like themed parts, and you get a little bit of choice within those parts.
That sounds really cool.
So you get to pick like within all those different parts, which is kind of neat. So like mine has like a gold kind of silver thing, and all the parts are metal, so it's really well made.
Oh, wow.
It's an expensive process, so it's nice to know that like everything holds up. And so you get like two out of 4 grips you can pick. You get 2 different pommel ends. You get 2 different like top things for the chassis, and you get to pick your own kyber crystal that'll determine the color of your lightsaber. So I went with violet, so that way I kind of had a balance of the light and the dark side with the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And because Mace Windu was good times.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you do all this, and it's got a bit of a show to it all as well. So it's not just like, give us $200 and there you go, do your thing. Like they go through a process with it and make it very involving. So that was very cool as well. And then you have this fully function, like really nice lightsaber that makes all the noises. When you move it, it'll interact with other lightsabers and clash and do that sort of thing. So it was very cool, and I recommend it if you are a big child like I am.
Definitely,
yeah. What about you folks? What have you been up to, Alana, lately?
Oh gosh, well, just too many video games. Well, I mean, life is kind of busy at the moment. It's coming up to the holiday season. Work is really busy. Right. So I just kind of bury away and play video games in the evening or go out with friends, but nothing special really. We'll talk about a particular game probably towards the end of the podcast, but Pokemon Sword and Shield came out in the gap between episodes, and I went to the midnight launch and had some fun with some friends, made some Pokemon cookies and ate them.
Oh, very cool.
and we had a good
Oh,
time.
I think I did see those, yeah.
Yeah.
You had, like, cookie cutters for it?
That's right, yeah. They were the 3 Gen 1 starters, so Bulbasaur, Charmander, Squirtle, and made some cookies, made some gingerbread as well, and we stayed up till 4 a.m. playing Pokemon, so that was a good time.
I have it on good authority that gingerbread makes for a good Eevee. Gingerbread
is definitely a name I've given an Eevee at some point in my life, I think.
I buy that. Well, my mom had to do, my mom, as a side job, does birthday cakes, and back when Pokemon was the craze, a lot of Pokemon birthday cakes came through.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, I had a Pokemon birthday cake when I was a kid.
There's tons of them. But one kid that a friend of hers, her son, I think he was allergic to a lot of stuff that was in conventional cakes. So she was like, what if we did like a big gingerbread cake?
Ooh.
And so she did gingerbread, and obviously it's the same color as an Eevee. So then she just kind of left the body of the gingerbread for the Eevee body and then iced on like the fluff.
Oh, that's so good.
And it actually turned out really beautifully, actually. And it was delicious. That's what I hear. That was the sad part about growing up as a kid, is seeing like 4 birthday cakes a week being made in my house that weren't for me. That I couldn't eat. They would just leave. But I did get a lot of pickings of icing, so that was great.
That's good. As long as you get something.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have an extensive list, Alana, for holiday shopping?
It's not too bad. My family and friends, we don't tend to go crazy. It's just kind of my friends and I always make a point to spend some time together before Christmas and around New Year as well. We'll probably do stuff at New Year more than anything. So it's more just about spending time with friends and family. I don't have a big family. My brother got married this year, so I'd imagine my brother and his wife will be over on Christmas Day, so that will be nice. But otherwise, just, yeah, it's not really, we don't really have a big list or anything. It's just kind of, what do you want or need? And if not, well, let's do something instead, you know.
Which is great.
Yeah.
It's like Thanksgiving. Spending time with family is something we don't always make time for, so it's nice to have. As much as the holiday definitely gets centered around like the commercial aspect of it, it's also nice to have that reminder of like, oh, people I haven't seen in a while, I should get together with them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Does Black Friday really like spill out over there too, like it does up in Canada? Because I mean, obviously we don't celebrate Thanksgiving right now, but we still have a bunch of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all that stuff's going crazy here. Has that spilled over into Europe and the UK and such?
Yes, it has. I did a few years ago. First time I remember it was maybe like 2014 or 2013 maybe. It's not really something I do. I'm not really into any kind of that crazy like, oh, you must buy this because it's cheaper, and it's like, 1, no it's not, and 2, please treat your staff properly. Like, you know, I'm not really one of those big bargain shoppery people that would go out on Black Friday and stuff. But yeah, it's been around for a while without the Thanksgiving, obviously. So, but it tends to be a week now, doesn't it? It's never like a one-day thing,
right?
It tends to be like 2 weeks worth of sales. And yeah,
and they just kind of warm you up. I think like the Black Friday stuff probably still has specific deals for that day to drag people out on that day that are probably the best. But yeah, like it always like all starts on Thursday, and then of course you have Cyber Monday, and but they have like, of course, quote unquote door crasher deals, which I know in the States there is actual door crashing that happens.
Yes.
Whereas thankfully I've never seen it that bad here. So
yeah.
But, I mean, I'll be doing something. I mean, my computer needs a hard drive, like a regular hard drive, not my SATA drive that is full of everything. So I think I'll be picking one of those up for dirt cheap, since a lot of that stuff goes on special. But yeah, I'm not too crazy. And that's been holding up her new phone, though. Oh. So that's what her big Black Friday deal is going to be.
Cool.
She's blaming all of her failings at Dr. Mario, the mobile one now. Like her inability of the phone's inability to keep up with her is what the failing is now on her very old iPhone, and she's jealous that I get to play Mario Kart and her phone can't handle it. So I think she wants to do that too.
Yeah,
because Mario Kart World Tour is so good.
Oh, I'm glad.
Yeah, I've been enjoying it. Well, thanks, Alana, for sharing. It's been a while since we had you on the podcast, so it's nice hearing that life is going along swimmingly for you, I hope.
It is. Thank you.
Okay, good. And Joe, what have you been up to? We'll take this opportunity after your life stuff to segue into other things I know you have been doing.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if both of y'all know, but I play in a band. And we've been doing a lot of work over the past few weeks with an EP that we're releasing in a couple of months. So
awesome!
So,
congrats!
Yeah, so we have the first single coming out in a couple of weeks, and yeah, that's been really exciting, and so just been doing a lot of that, and then as we'll launch into talking about games, it's been a lot of games. It's been Sword and Shield. It's been the past few days has been Bloodborne.
Yeah, because you picked up a new
Nice.
console, which expands your horizons, right?
Yes, I got a PS4 Pro because they had a special edition Death Stranding one, and I am a ridiculous person. So I got that console, and I think it's fantastic. I really like it.
It's a solid console.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially getting it now. I mean, there's 6 years of games that have come out for it, so I'm just
Right.
playing a whole lot of catch up. So Bloodborne, Nier Automata, what else did I have? Street Fighter. So yeah.
I've heard good things about both those RPGs.
Mm-hmm.
Nier Automata, there we go. Nier Automata is one that I want to go back for sure. And Bloodborne, I don't know, Dark Souls was fun and such, but yeah, I kind of fell off it, I guess. I didn't drink the Kool-Aid as deeply as former hosts of this podcast.
Whoever would you be referring to?
Clearly, Derek Heemsbergen.
Ah, yes.
He was the biggest fan of the Bloodborns and the Souls of Darkness and such. No, Rob Steinman, bless him, who is wonderful. And let's all take a shot because we've talked about Dark Souls.
Yep.
But no, I miss Rob. I would love to be on a podcast with Rob, actually. That was one thing I was sad I never got to do yet. So, Rob, come on the podcast and tell me how terrible a job I'm doing. But yeah. But anyways, yeah, Death Stranding. I am super curious to hear about this ridiculousness, as I know Alana has been saying as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, what would you like me to talk about with it? Because there's certainly a lot.
Oh my goodness.
Well, it doesn't fall in our coverage, unfortunately, because I guess it doesn't have enough RPG elements to it, but it was up for debate, I think, when it got launched. Like, we were thinking it could be, right, Alana?
It's never really come up. I think nobody was ever sure what Death Stranding was, and now we all know. It's basically a walking sim, isn't it? To really boil it down to if you're going to boil it down to a one-term thing, walking sim possibly is the closest you can get. But I am curious about, I don't know, just for me, Death Stranding on the outside just looks like Hideo Kojima exercising all Hideo Kojima senses in one disc, and I am terrified and also a bit put off by it, but I'm also really curious. I feel like I'm banging on the outside of a window, what's going on here? But yeah,
Well, spoiler free. I'll keep this as spoiler free as possible. I mean, I loved the gameplay. It's kind of like a more simplified, and we're gonna have to take another shot. It's like a more simplified, kind of more childlike Dark Souls in a way. Because to traverse this beautiful world, the game was made with the Decima engine, that was used for Horizon Zero Dawn.
Right.
So it is.
Oh, that's nice.
It is fantastic.
It explains a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So the traversal, there's there's snowy mountains, there's rocky terrain and everything. But kind of the big component that I compare it with to Dark Souls is that there is an asynchronous multiplayer aspect where you can build structures like bridges and ladders and such, and they will be in other people's games. And by pressing,
that's super cool.
And by pressing the that glowing button on the PS4 controller, you can give it likes. So if you really like someone's bridge, you can just tap that to give them a like, and you get a higher score that ranks up your basically your delivery service rating.
Right.
Which that was the part that I loved about it. I love the community aspect of it. I loved how positive that was, because you can't really downvote things. You can't dismantle other people's structures, only within your own game. so it won't be erased from other people's games.
Okay, I was curious, like, yeah, if you wanted to experience that challenge for yourself, you don't necessarily have to have the structure there then?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So if you want to dismantle a bridge, you can do that someone else has made, and it won't remove it in other people's games. And they're randomized servers, essentially. So you get people kind of all across the world. They're thrown together, and and by pressing the glowing button again, when you're not around something to like, Norman Reedus' character just yells out and says "hello," and people can reply back by pressing the button. It's really funny. You don't see them, but they just say like "hello, I'm Sam."
Oh, that's super interesting.
Yeah.
Does it only can you only see it if you have PS Plus, or is it just whatever? Like it'll always show up in the game?
Yeah, you don't have to have PS Plus for it. So I didn't have PS Plus, and it was working fine for me.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I have it now for Bloodborne, but so kind of I'll keep this brief. Story is an absolute mess.
That sounds right. Yeah,
that's on brand.
It is possibly out of all the Kojima games that I have played, which is Metal Gear Solid 1 through 4, this is the messiest.
Okay.
It is possibly the least sexist, which is still not saying much, but...
I was going to say, that's shocking, given some of the character names. Good grief.
But a step in the right direction?
Yeah, I mean...
Half a step.
Perhaps it's maybe not a step in the right direction, but a step back from the edge of extreme misogyny.
Okay, that's good.
All right.
So, yeah, so there's that. The actors in it are quite good. Mads Mikkelsen is really good, actually, in this. And
are you normally not a Mads fan?
Oh no, it's kind of in spite of the script, because I think he's a great actor.
Right.
But
oh, I see.
But Hideo Kojima is not terribly good with scripting.
Gotcha. So he's doing some heavy lifting, is what you're saying.
Yes.
I guess Reedus as well.
Norman Reedus is he doesn't get a whole lot of emotional range in this. His move,
contrary to that, like crying with the baby trailer.
Yes, he's very physical in this, which is great. But in terms of that kind of acting, heavy lifting, I'd say Mads Mikkelsen is kind of running the show. Tommy Earl Jenkins, who plays Die Hard Man, is quite good as well.
Like he looks like Bruce Willis, or
no, that's his character's name.
Yeah, Die Hard Man. Yeah,
it's Die Hard Man.
What?
Yeah. Welcome to Hideo Kojima's brain. This is basically it.
Following in the realm of characters like Hot Cold Man.
That sounds like a rejected Mega Man character.
Yeah, they mostly all sound like that.
But I mean, after What's Her Face with the skin thing breathing, like I've
lost
hope for characters. Quiet, yes.
God, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so there isn't anything necessarily like that where it's with Quiet or something in Ground Zeroes, which I'm not even going to bring up on this show. You can look it up if you want. But it concerns a character named Paz, I believe. Anyway, so it's a weird game, but I think that there's something really interesting. It is unsubtle as a sledgehammer, but the themes are interesting. Or it is as subtle as a sledgehammer, more like it. But yeah, I think people should give it a try. There's definitely more that I can say about it, but this is RPG fan, not Kojima fan or something.
Definitely not. No.
So, yeah.
I'd be really curious to listen to that podcast. Actually.
Oh, I'll do it. I'll just
a weekly Kojima podcast.
Oh,
Kojima
God.
probably hosts one already.
Yeah. I'm sure there's some. I mean, there are probably YouTubers that make their careers off of this. So
yeah, I mean, I guarantee there is something. I mean, there's a podcast for everything. But it's just, yeah. I mean, we're all fascinated when you get to baby in a jar for power or life or whatever. Like, what drugs do you have to take to get to that for one of your main story gameplay elements, right?
If if I can take a second and recount a story about the baby in the game. So I have so I tend to wake up early for work, and so there's one day where I was up at like 3:30. I was like, well, I don't have to be at work for a little bit, so let me play some Death Stranding. Your baby cries in this game, and the cry comes through the controller. It is very unsettling. So it was 4:45 in the morning, and to soothe the baby, you have to basically rock your controller as if it were a child.
Oh God! It uses the
that's so
sensor.
fascinating and weird.
It's super weird. So I was in the game. I was beset by a phantom. I won't go into more about that. And my baby started crying, and it's 4:45 in the morning, and it's just me in my room trying not to wake my roommates up, smothering the controller because I hadn't figured out you can turn on the volume yet, kind of rocking it back and forth, saying, "Please be quiet, stop, BB, stop."
This is a parent simulator.
Yeah,
at its finest.
Yeah, it definitely. I want kids someday, but not like that. No.
Yeah, never mind taking home an egg for home ec or anything anymore. Like now you have playing Death Stranding to teach kids about child rearing.
Oh God.
Yes. This is the future. So yeah,
Please stop
super weird.
Sorry, Alana.
No, I just don't want that to be the future. Like, God, please help me.
So super weird game. Give it a shot if it seems interesting to you. It is a technical marvel in some instances. So yeah.
Well, I definitely want to see more about it. I feel like it's one I might pick up on sale someday, just because it has been being really well received for what it is. I mean, it's highly regarded at the. It was nominated for the Video Game Awards, and a lot of other people seem to be pretty positive on it. So I'd be curious to drink the Kool-Aid and try it out. But continuing the trend of bizarre, weird game experiences, Shenmue III, we finally got it, and you were playing it, Alana.
I was.
How is it after all these years? Did you play the other two first?
I have played the other two, a few times.
You reviewed it, right?
I reviewed the remasters last year on the PS4, and I have also played them originally on Dreamcast and Xbox. The first experience was watching my brother play them because I was relatively young when they first came out, and they're quite involved. But yeah, it's an extremely fascinating series, and I want to say right now, people who compare Yakuza and Shenmue shouldn't, because they're very different, extraordinarily different. Like, Yakuza is very busy. There's lots of life things to do and interaction and Japanese tourism and things like that. But Shenmue, a bit like Death Stranding, is a game about doing things that are normal in that world and relatively mundane, I would say. So yeah, Shenmue. Have either of you played a Shenmue game before?
I have not.
I have not either, but I am fascinated by it.
It's an extremely interesting case study because Yu Suzuki is like, there's nothing else like Shenmue at all, and I think the most fascinating and maybe one of my favorite things about Shenmue 3 is that this is a game in 2019 that feels exactly like the other two. And I think, you get like long distance sequels like, Mega Man 9 and 8 feel like the older ones, definitely. But by virtue, it's because they're 2D platformer side-scrollers. Shenmue 3 is a 3D game with it's not open world, but you have tasks to do and things to do, and you can explore and talk to all the NPCs, but it feels like beat for beat almost identical to those 18-year-old games, like right down to the voice acting, the directing, the conversations, the script, the menus, the things you can do, the progress, and it's extremely interesting, and it's like, I love it and also don't love it. Like, I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated by it, and I think it's really interesting because I kind of expected it to be not great, and it's not incredible in my opinion, Shenmue 3. I think that its failing is also like the reason it should be admired. Like, yeah, it's great, you know, we've managed to replicate the 2018, the 2001 experience in 2019, but Shenmue 3 hasn't moved an inch in 18 years. And interestingly enough, Yu Suzuki has also not directed a game since Shenmue 2. So take that what you will, I think.
It's whether he was, just waiting on this or what.
Yeah.
So I've always been fascinated with Shenmue, but I haven't been sure if I wanted to take the plunge with it. So as someone who I can handle kind of rough writing and voice acting and stuff, as long as the themes or philosophical ideas or anything like that present might be interesting. Is this a game that will make you think kind of critically about its characters and story, or is it kind of just you have to admire the tedium?
I think it's more admire the tedium. There's not too many strong themes, I would say. I think the main story beats through the whole series is Ryo is on a journey to chase a man who's murdered his father. This happens at the very beginning of the game of Shenmue 1. And it's kind of a quest for revenge. So Ryo is this 17-year-old, I think that's how old he is, I'll probably be corrected, but he kind of goes on this really long, mundane quest of raising money to leave his hometown in Japan to get to Hong Kong, and then it's more raising money to get from Aberdeen in Hong Kong to the other location in Shenmue 2.
Is that Bailu?
Yes, it is Bailu, yes, thank you. So there's a bit of a character study to go on with Ryo, and like, why is he so het for revenge? Why is he putting so much time and effort into it? Why is it just revenge? But you don't really, other than like the reason that he wants to get revenge, there's no exploration yet 3 games down the line. And I like to think that eventually that Ryo will have some introspective moments for the inevitable Shenmue 4 and probably 5, because that's how many games at least we're expected to get. But we don't know what's going on. Yeah, it's a complicated situation, because I think many people expected 3, many outsiders expected 3 to be the end. Yu Suzuki very plainly stated that 3 would not be the final game. It is a 16-chapter story, and Shenmue 2 ended on either chapter 4 or 5. And we're not sure where Shenmue 3 ends in that so-called canon.
Do you feel like there's going to be... Does this game lend itself to DLC, do you think?
There is DLC. I don't remember what it's going to be. It's not story-based, no. I would be interested, though. I think that would be a really good resolution to... I mean, Shenmue 3 was a full-priced game, so I don't think it will get loads and loads of DLC. But I feel like Shenmue being episodic would be one way to deal with the gameplay or the feel of it, because that would modernize it slightly, but it would give you more bite-sized chunks of the story and feed it. So I think that's a really good suggestion, actually. But yeah,
I think it would work well, yeah.
Yeah, I think given that that's how narrative games have been of recent times, you know, you can just gate off areas or things like that, which Shenmue already does in certain ways. Like, you have to go to one area and move the story on slightly to go to other areas, yeah, but it would be good, and it would make the story more digestible, because Shenmue 3 in particular, 1 and 2 are slow burns, and things happen. Quite a few things happen. Maybe Shenmue 3's biggest problem for me is that nothing really happens for the game at all. You go between the village of... you go from Shenmue's hometown. Shenmue is the girl who Ryo meets at the end of Shenmue 2. And then you go to Niaowu, which is a port village town in China, mainland China. And between those 2 locations, maybe one major thing happens at the end of the game and nothing else really. So not only is this a digestible, it's pretty slow moving, but there's not really a lot of reward to Shenmue 3, I would say, which is a shame. But I have to wonder if it's intentional, because the feel of Shenmue 3 is hey, you've waited 18 years for this, here's more of the same, and we're going to tease you for the next step, so you know it's not going to be as long a wait, hopefully. But we don't know that yet.
I mean, I would wonder, though, isn't, like, forklift driving its own reward, Alana?
There is forklift driving, but you don't get to do it until quite near the end.
What about cat petting? Can you pet cats?
No, you can't. And I was trying to figure this out, but in Niaowu, the music in this game is really beautiful. It's really peaceful and serene, and one of the things I love to do in Shenmue III is take in the sights, because it's not really a technical masterpiece. Like, I think it definitely looks like a PS4 game. The character models are a bit wonky and the movements are a bit all over the place. But the backdrops and the settings are gorgeous, and the music really accompanies walking around the cities and the village very well. But in Niaowu in particular, there is a cat meowing throughout the entire track, like on and off. And I was like, where's the cat? Because there's famously Mimi the cat in Shenmue 1. And I was just trying to look for this cat to pet, but no, there's no cat, unfortunately.
It's just a great big tease.
I know. But yeah, Shenmue 3 it's super interesting because it's made for fans, and it does that, and it delivers in that. And I think if you're a diehard Shenmue fan, I think most of them will be really happy with this, because it's more of the same. And to think in 18 years we haven't really got anything else like Shenmue is kind of incredible, because like people compare it to Yakuza because of the tourism and walking around doing things aspect, and I guess the combat, because Shenmue originally was supposed to be Virtua Fighter RPG, basically.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then you've got, obviously, it pioneered QuickTime events, so you've got that, and you've got the interactive storytelling, the building up relationships.
I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah, it was possibly not the first game, but one of the first. It was definitely the one to popularize them. So it did a lot of things, and it still retains all of that. And I think it's incredible that it retains the feeling of Shenmue 1 and 2, but I think Shenmue 3 fails in giving fans a bit more, like, where's that story? Why is Ryo not questioning his revenge? Shenhua feels incredibly underutilized. I think I remember back when the Kickstarter launched, I remember one of the selling points was having Shenhua to be a bit more involved in the story, and like you can have discussions with her and things like that. And you can do that at the end of the day, but most of the time she doesn't accompany you anywhere. So she just feels like she carries Ryo's story, basically. She's just there to push Ryo along. So.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, because I like her. She has one interesting moment in game, which is pretty funny. But, yeah.
Well, one question I guess I had for you with all of this as well is what iterations, because they obviously had an opportunity, 18 years down the line to bring this into the modern age and do some different changes. And like you were saying, it's great that they just kind of kept it the same to make it feel the same, and maybe that's a safe way for them to reintroduce it, see if people still like this, and maybe they'll iterate moving forward. But what would you like to see from it? Like, what do you think would improve the experience of Shenmue?
Gosh, it's hard because it feels so right and wrong as it is, but
right, yeah, exactly. Like, what modernizations, I guess, would keep it intact?
I think a more involved and a better combat system. So Shenmue 1 and 2's combat was more Virtua Fighter-esque. There were inputs that you could put in, and it was easy to do combos and things like that. And I think it worked for that because it was kind of on a semi-2D plane. They haven't retained the 2D plane, and they haven't retained the combat system from the first two games, and it's worse because it feels more button mashy. So I think that Shenmue would probably interestingly do well to pull from Yakuza's combat and take some cues from some other action RPGs, potentially, or even just action games, and, like, you don't want it to be stylish
Batman.
And flashy. Yeah, maybe. Like, it's interesting to have, like, a kung fu combat system that relies on inputs, but the inputs have to be perfect and complete, and it doesn't feel like a fighting game. But I think that drawing from another genre, or a game series like Yakuza, might benefit it. The other thing are just, like, tiny little modernizations. Luckily, tank controls are gone, so that's good. It controls a lot better, but quick travel is very restrictive. You can only quick travel at the end of the day, and Niaowu in particular, you get used to where everything is, but Niaowu is quite long, and quite big, so getting to places wears out your stamina and things like that, so you have to keep eating food, whereas quick travel would probably like cut that down a little bit. That's more of a minor nitpick. And skippable dialogue, because you cannot skip most of the dialogue in Shenmue 3, and you can if you talk to somebody the second time by accident. So if you talk to them and then press like confirm you want to talk to them again, you can skip that, but you can't skip it before. And there are some really long, slow cutscenes, and I think it would benefit to speed up things a little bit. So
if you read faster and aren't too concerned with the voice work.
Yeah, to a degree. I don't want to say too concerned with the voice work, because I always respect what the voice actors do. And actually, the NPC cast in this game are pretty good. There's some really big names in it, and if you've played any other recent RPGs or adventure games or anything, you'll definitely be picking out a few familiar names. Greg Chun, who voiced, the main character of Judgment, is a fan favourite character in this. So that's a really cool reference for everybody. And Shenhua is voiced by the girl who voices Tita Russell in Trails of Cold Steel 3, which I found very amusing, playing the two back to back. So
yeah, because you had been heavily in that one as well.
That's right. But yeah, I just think Shenmue needs to make some quick fixes, I think, for like to make it more accessible, I think, for people. Because I think a lot of people will come into Shenmue 1 and 2 or 3 who've never played them before and go, oh, what's this game like? And it will be hard for them to crack into it because of how slow-paced it is and how old-fashioned it feels, I guess.
It's like wanting to experience a first-person shooter and going back and playing GoldenEye when you could be playing like Halo or something, where while it pioneered it and did a good job for its time, we've made jumps.
Yeah, I think so.
Joe, what is it about Shenmue that attracts you, that had you interested in maybe wanting to check out the series?
Well, I think the story of it is fascinating. You have the most expensive game created at its time, and like I don't know. There's something that draws me to Yu Suzuki as kind of this slightly tragic figure. Yu Suzuki is a genius. I mean, he created Virtua Fighter. He was kind of a pioneer of a lot of the great Sega cabinets and systems that they ran on. So he's a brilliant developer and creator. And so I always find myself drawn to kind of the what might be perceived as failures of brilliant people, I guess. It's kind of like Brian Wilson's Smile. I love that album. I'm not really entirely sure. Maybe I just really love tedium, as evidenced by my positive feelings towards Death Stranding. But I would definitely like to give it a shot someday. Maybe just to make my best friend, who I always joke about, one day we're going to play Shenmue, and they usually reply with a few second long groan of no, please, God. Yeah, that would be why I would have some interest in it.
I think that's good enough. I think Yu Suzuki and the whole campaign and the whole everything about the series is really fascinating because of just how long it took them to make it, and even the Kickstarter, and how there's been controversy over it, obviously, because it's an Epic Game Store exclusive at the moment. So yeah, and there are a lot of broken promises in that Kickstarter, I will say. I didn't back it because I wasn't even aware it was a thing, because the Final Fantasy VII remake got announced on the same day, so I was just like, okay, everything else was kind of a blur to me on that day. But yeah, I think Yuka Suzuki is a really interesting character, and as you say, Virtua Fighter, I grew up playing and I loved it. It was really exciting and interesting, and I actually played some of the arcade cabinets, and I really, really liked them. And I thought it was really interesting that he jumped to do this narrative adventure potential. It's not an RPG, but it was trying to do some RPG stuff, and then to see him lose everything because, Shenmue 1 and 2 are the most expensive games made at the time. They also, bombed the Dreamcast and Sega, basically. They had to pull out of the console market because the Dreamcast sold so poorly and those games were so expensive. They never made the money back, I don't think. So, you know, and then the 18-year wait, you know, is there going to be an Xbox sequel? Is there going to be a PS3 sequel? And there never was, and here we are. So I think I'd recommend it, weirdly, even though I'm always like, they're good, but there's things that definitely don't work. And because of how fascinating, how different they are to everything. Like, but yeah, I don't know whether I'd say jump in now or wait until we know what's going on with the rest of the series, because obviously Shenmue 3 was kickstarted. I'm sure Shenmue 4 would be kickstarted, but I highly doubt it exists in any format right now.
Sure. Yeah, maybe I'll give those remasters a try.
Yeah, that's a good place to start, and I'm glad they remastered them.
Yeah, it's one thing where it could use a touch-up, I guess. Well, and I think they're not maybe important to play, but I think for people who are curious about gaming history and where a lot of origins come from, I think they're definitely useful tools for that and worth revisiting if you're just curious, as Joe is, like with the story behind them, the history that it kind of launched. I think it's worthwhile to explore these games for sure. And yeah, some people are more patient with older, more archaic gameplay mechanics than others. You know, depends on the system.
Exactly. And I have a soft spot for the Dreamcast.
Oh, you don't say.
As many do.
Oh no. My fans have gotten, my
Your Twitter
love
account
for
has been
Dreamcast.
outed.
Oh, no.
Your Dreamcast Twitter account.
Yeah, I know.
All your fandom.
The Dreamcast was pioneering in itself, but that's a whole other episode.
Yeah, I feel like there's a retro encounter for that somewhere down the line.
There's already one
that can be visited.
It already
Oh,
exists.
that's right. That's right.
I was on it.
Were you now?
Yeah.
Shocking.
I know, right? It's almost like I talked about something in particular. Let's not do this.
I actually had a copy of Shenmue for the Dreamcast in my possession when Annette and I started dating. She had it from somewhere, even though she didn't have a Dreamcast.
Okay.
But I think it came from, I think an ex-boyfriend of hers had one, and somehow it got into her possession, and somehow, I don't know. Either way, that was kind of funny. And, but I did have a Dreamcast for a brief period, and I thought about getting into it, but then I was like, I have too many things, too many games, so I sold the Dreamcast off for a little extra coin and such, and eventually parted with the Shenmue as well. But it was kind of funny that I was like, oh, I have this weird, bizarre game that I could get into, but there's the remasters and everything, and someday if I have the time, I might go to it.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere anymore. They're not as hard to get hold of as they used to.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. Maybe we can convince Solosi to do a Retro Encounter episode on it. Not likely.
He won't do it, but there may be one eventually.
I've never put hands on any Sega console before, actually. So yeah, it's kind of this foreign world to me that I don't quite understand, but I'm fascinated by.
It had some gems. I enjoyed my Genesis back in the day.
Yeah.
And I've played some fun stuff on the Master System. But, and I did a bit of Dreamcast, but none of the RPGs. I do wish I had done Skies of Arcadia, though. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. Back to Weird Bizarre Games. In the backlog of RPG fans review codes, I came across a couple of games, one that I'll talk about later when my review comes up for it. So yeah, I've been playing Cope Island Adrift, I think is what it's called. Made by ZDS, indie game made on RPG Maker. And yeah, as you go down the list of our old review codes, I was just kind of like, oh, this seems like it could be interesting. I'm just trying to kind of work backwards and help out Alana and the team with stuff that's kind of been shoved to the side, since right now I don't have a ton of time to keep up with the latest big releases on a timely fashion. And there are people who don't have families like I do and other things going on to jump on this stuff faster than me. So I'll help out where I can. And Cope Island was a nice little surprise for me as well. It seems like it's kind of trying to be in the vein of what Undertale did.
Okay.
Yeah, so it plays like a traditional RPG, top-down. Like, it looks like an RPG Maker game, but they made all their own assets and everything, so it still has its own unique identity, but it's very like foundation years of like the Super Nintendo, where it still kind of looked Nintendo-y.
Yeah, I get that.
So, but it still looks good. It's effective. It brings the very bleak world of Cope Island to life. And, you know, given the title of Cope Island, you can probably figure out where it's going with the theming behind it. And it basically is you are this mysterious robed character, so you can identify however you want to identify to represent yourself. And you wash up on this island called Cope Island, where everyone basically speaks in a lot of like really reflective, introspective, how everyone speaks. It's definitely a game about coping with emotions, with life, with getting through your own personal journey. And you start out trying to journey across this island to get to your demon, essentially. So it feels like the developers, I don't know how many people are on the team, but it does feel like it was a personal journey for the person making it for their own coping mechanism to kind of get out how they're feeling and to help others, I guess, translate whatever they're going through in life to let it out through this game. And when you get into like its traditional RPG kind of combat, very similar to like Dragon Quest and such, all the enemies also seem like they're kind of representations of life's own struggles and demons and stuff like that. So you'll have like, you'll fight like ego, you'll fight attraction, you'll fight depression, stuff like that. And they'll all kind of have move sets that feed into those themings as well. So it's like you're trying to overcome these own personal physical manifestations of your own personal obstacles to get through to the end to battle your demon and see how you do with that kind of thing. Wow. And I like that. It actually works out rather well. And there's other citizens, so to speak, who are around the island, and all of them have their own little reflections and journeys and kind of like what they're going through as well, and feeding it into you. Some of it's just like, here's some hints about how to go through things and how to deal with the island, whereas other people it's just like, I feel lost in this and that, and I don't know what it is for me. I haven't found my demon yet, but when you inevitably get to yours, it'll be for you, blah 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 blah. Like, it's all very poetic, but it doesn't really seem like it's doing it for its own sake. It just feels like someone was just trying to, like, it's like almost like you're playing someone's journal.
Oh, right. Yeah. I like
in a weird way.
Yeah.
But it's effective. Like, I was pleasantly surprised because I didn't know what to expect. Like, you never know what's going to happen from an RPG Maker game because anyone can kind of do anything, which is wonderful. I like the platform for it. Like, this is usually the kind of stuff that Neil tackles.
It is.
And I beat him to the punch. And it's been a delight to go through. One thing I like about it is all the combat is obvious. Like, it's not like you see encounters moving around on the map, but they're milestones. So in order to get to the next step, you have to go through each encounter. It's represented by like a little flame, and it basically blocks off an area, the next step of the area kind of thing.
Okay, yeah.
And certain paths will have a few different options, and then a harder enemy party or something might be blocking off like access to a treasure chest, or you can go the easier route just to go on and not worry about the treasure. And there's a scoring system, but the scoring system doesn't really seem to do much, which is interesting. The game basically tells you early on, like, there's a score, but that only really means something to you. It doesn't really matter to anything else. And that's largely true. There are a few gates that are kept by the score in certain spots, like a treasure chest won't open unless you have like 2,000 score or higher. And you can also, there's a few spots where it's like, I'll do this thing for you if you give me 250 score. So there's a few spots where it kind of acts like a bit of monetization, but it's few and far between. Largely, you get to the end of the game and the score is just for your own personal, I feel good. I beat my score.
That's cool.
Whatever.
So you don't need to like grind for score or anything at any point. It's all doable.
It's all, yeah. The scoring is based on the encounters and basically how quickly you get through the encounter.
Okay.
So the faster you do, you get a higher score, and it's fairly easy to do that. And the encounter system I thought was really neat because it's, as much as it's set up like a traditional Dragon Quest style battle where, you see the enemies before you, you have your actions before you. You start out basically getting one action, and you have like a basic attack, which will just attack something, and then you regenerate a little bit of hit points from it.
Right.
And then you have access to weapons, which are things that you randomly find in treasure chests, because every time you play through the game, it's basically different.
Right, so it's like it's got roguelite elements to it. Okay.
Exactly. So while you will, I think, encounter a lot of the same enemies, you'll find different weapons that'll make your journey easier or harder because certain enemies have different resistances to different items and weapons.
Okay.
So you can do the basic attack, which regenerates a bit of hit points, or you can use the weapon, which might have different effects on different enemies, which is always great, and it charges your weapon skill, which has access to a third menu option, which is your weapon skills. So, for example, there's like a flame sword thing that I got in one of my playthroughs, and then it has a skill where like it can just do like a really hard critical hit for this expenditure of like 3 weapon skill points. Or you can do another thing where it will like hit everybody and do like a stat debuff for like 2 skill points, and then there's stuff like that. So every time, so you're kind of doing this like ebb and flow management game of like choosing when to use the skill, when to do the regenerate, and then the last thing you have is standby, which basically you take a brief break and you regenerate a chunk of your hit points.
Okay.
Which is, again, crucial to managing, because, like I said, you start off with having only 1 action per turn, so as multiple enemies wail on you, you might have to be like, okay, I'm not going to attack this turn, I just need to go on the defense and recharge my hit points. And you get basically 4 uses of that, because each time you use it, you get less and less hit points, so you're trying to weigh that, and then eventually it will regenerate if the battle goes on long enough. So it's got a neat little bit of like a tactical system to it.
Yeah, that does sound
and
really
then
interesting.
It is. It kept it fresh for me because I was just like, okay, I'm just going to be going through and mashing the attack button and there we go. But no, it actually made me consider a lot of choices and weigh my options. And the enemies have some interesting stat debuffs that they can throw at you. And again, depending on the weapons you get, you might like get one that gives you regeneration, or one that you can use a certain skill but it lowers your speed. So you got to weigh like, they're going to hit me first, but I can hit them harder after. But can I survive it? A lot of stuff like that. And then as you hit certain milestones of beating some, like, I guess, the more boss monsters of certain areas, you unlock more attacks. So then you'll get better and have 2 attacks, and then 3. And then I think by the end of it, I think you get 4.
Ah.
So then you can start kind of chaining different effects and going like, cool, I'll do 2 weapon attacks, charge my weapon skill, unleash this skill, and then go back to my basic attack, or I'll take a standby and take a breath to recharge my hit points before they hit me, stuff like that.
Okay.
So I thought that was very cool. And a lot of especially the bosses have some, I feel like if I recall, again, it's been a bit since I played it, a lot of it has like kind of a puzzly element, like certain bosses, again, is trying to figure out what they're weak to,
Right, yeah.
what sort of stuff they have, like, and sort of a bit of pattern recognition, like one of the early bosses on the island is like a bell toller, and they'll kind of go through a chain of like one bell will do like a stat buff, and then they'll give you a bit of a regeneration boost, and then it'll do a bunch of damage, and then something else or something like that. So you kind of have to get into the flow of their pattern to get through the battle successfully. Mm. And then there's, like I said, different puzzles on the island itself to go through. Like, there was one's path that's like, this is a shortcut, but someone tells you this is their special flower bed, and they'll be very unhappy if you walk through it. And that all kind of could weigh on you in the end, kind of thing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because once you've basically found, because you're trying to find 3 talismans to unlock the entrance, they'll take you down to fight your demon. And so they go into 3 different kind of themed areas of the island, and then you get the talismans, put them in, and you can go into this underground spot that leads you to your demon to battle. And then once you've completed that, you're taken, because I thought it was like, oh cool, it was a quick little half-hour, 40-minute game. I'm done.
Yeah.
But then there's this whole like after part, like a lot of games will have like the unlockable content where you can go through and browse the glossary and see what all the enemies were and see like all the different endings and stuff like that. Kind of, I'm thinking of like the Chrono Trigger on the PlayStation.
Yeah.
But this one, you get to walk around through it. That's how they kind of interpreted it for this. So your character wanders through the different areas, so you can see all the enemies you fought, you can see what weapons you found, but it also shows you what you haven't found, how much of the game you haven't completed and discovered.
Oh, that's nice. I like that.
Yeah, and then you find out there's like these forbidden weapons that you can maybe find, and there's like little riddles for how to unlock them. So it has a lot more to come back to, because then I finished and I was like, oh, well now I want, like, it's kind of a fun completionist stream.
Yeah.
So I find myself now wanting to go back to it, and then when you do your second playthrough, you start seeing, it tells you there's a hidden doorway to the underground. So now you have 2 paths that you can take to the end of the game, which completely changes the experience. And throughout the underground and the above ground, there's stairways that lead you back up and down, so you can kind of pick and choose. Because I had a few spots where I went to something and it was like, oh, you don't have the right item for this. But there was nowhere I could find it on the island. So maybe it's something I can find down below from fighting a certain battle, and then maybe I can bring it up and unlock a different path to something. So like there's a lot of neat stuff packed into this little seemingly simple game. And I think it's very neat, and it's a very rewarding experience, even if you're going through some stuff. And I'm not really going through a lot, but I can identify with, I have felt like this before, and having to overcome and cope and just go like, it's all going to be okay if I just persevere, is kind of the overall message. And whatever your demon is for you, whatever it represents, it's for you. It's no one else's journey. Everyone has their own journey, and that's okay. And I think it's really neat.
It does sound really fun. I'm interested. I'm always interested to see how roguelite stuff is implemented into turn-based RPGs, and changing the map around and changing like what weapons you start off with. Sounds like a really good way of doing it, I think, because some playthroughs might be harder than others, I guess. If you get particularly lucky and get a really good set of weapons and you have every boss's weakness on hand, then great, but then other times you might not have any of them, so yeah.
Yeah, because that's one thing I failed to mention, is you only have, they don't call it lives, you have 3 chances to go through it. And so basically if you die, you basically reset to the beginning of that area.
Right. Yeah.
And then it says like you have 2 chances left. And what's one thing is there's these like little like checkpoints that you can spend a score on if you want to purchase more chances. So you can keep going if you want to give up on having a higher score. And that's, again, it's all relative. It's up to you if you're willing to do that or not. And so that can keep you going. But yeah, if you die, you die. And like I think I've lost once because I had a couple weapons that were okay, but like especially the underground is definitely harder. So I was getting myself whacked around a lot more down there and just didn't have the weapons that were quite lining up for the weaknesses. And it's just, that was the luck of the draw for me. Even though they were cool weapons, they just weren't working for what I was doing. So it's either, well, should I bite the bullet and go back up top and try and experience what I've already experienced with a bit of what I've done in the underground, or tough it out and try another playthrough down below, you know? It's interesting.
Sounds really different, yeah.
I'm glad that, and it seems like over the past couple of years, this has been happening more and more, but that games are more confident and less afraid to talk about these issues like depression and different necessities for coping. You know, when I think about the game Grease that came out last year, or Celeste,
Yes.
you know, it's really great to see that that games are tackling these subjects, and I think they're all the better for it, and they might be the best. They might be the best form of art, the form of art best suited to tackle these. Of course, like it can be done poorly, but I think at their best, video games have the best potential to provide kind of these glimpses of empathy generation in it.
Yeah, because you can take ownership of it instead of just passively sitting back and watching a film where you see somebody else deal with it, and it might be similar to your journey and your choices, or it might not be. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, film is a great art form for it too, reading books is. But again, when you have something like this that lets you take control a bit more, yeah, it feels more your own process, which was delightful even in Undertale. And I feel like I experienced like Cope Island probably, I don't know if it definitely hasn't come out at the same time, but Undertale has just been such a darling and has taken over in that regard for its very avant-garde approach to combat and feelings and inclusivity and everything, that something like this might get lost. But I definitely encourage people who like that sort of game to look at Cope Island Adrift to tackle these themes, because yeah, like you said, it's a great medium for it. And it's so easy to look at video games as a distraction, which is great. You do what you need to do to deal with your feelings, to deal with life. Some people just want to come home and detach, and that's totally fine. I mean, I definitely encourage everyone to talk about their feelings with somebody and work through it, because we can't all be band-aided masses of feelings that are just waiting to explode at the wrong trigger. But if you want to experience a healthy way to work through it and see someone else's journey as well. Because again, like I said, I feel like this is a very personal expression for this developer to get through their own whatever. Then yeah, this is a great game for that.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us, Greg.
Yeah, I'm really, really interested in it now. I think more games. Joe hit a really good point in that I think it's more smaller developers are starting to push the boundaries in what you can do and discuss with mental health or anything like that. And I think they're all extremely good at doing it. Stardew Valley is another really excellent example of teaching you how to empathize with people and with everybody. And everybody's got redeeming qualities, and every single member of Pelican Town is going through some kind of terrible thing, always trying to push something in the past. And it teaches you how to recover and heal with them and make friends, and I'm really loving this kind of like surge of games that are sensitive and they don't need to deal with, oh, let's save the world, things like that. And it's dealing with like, no, like look after yourself is a really important message that I think we're really getting better at telling in video games.
Well, self-care is so important. It's something I feel that unfortunately generations prior to ours were discouraged from. They were just push, earn, work. And it's easy for them to look at, our generations now and say like, oh, they're just apathetic and too sensitive and touchy-feely. And it's just like, no, we're just learning to say no, and we're learning to take ownership of our own emotions and feelings. And people all have different opinions of that, and I respect that. And that's what I feel is why indie developers can get away with this too, because unfortunately AA and AAA developers, there's a sure bet that they have to have, and the big feeling games may not land for them when they invest millions of dollars into Feeling Simulator 2020, So unfortunately, as much as there's a lot of great games like that deal with emotions, but it can be pushed aside in favor of the complex gameplay and graphics and this and that. So indie developers are forced to work with less, so they have to do something I think that can stand out, and these experiences do stand out for sure. Anyways, but yeah, segueing. I have to figure out how I want to segue out of this.
We need to shield ourselves from our emotions. So,
do we? Or do we need to confront them with a sword?
There you go.
Yes.
So,
that's it.
Yes, exactly. That is it, Joe. Thank you so much, fans, for listening. There's no other games to talk about. I'm kidding. Pokemon came out. Alana was talking about that, so obviously we're going to talk about it. Sword and Shield dropped 2 weeks ago now. I didn't get into it as early as everybody else because Disney was a little bit of a priority for us, and as much as I wanted to be on it at the entrance, I didn't get to play it until I was on the plane home. But Alana, Joe, and a lot of the team jumped on it right away. We had a nice feature that shared our thoughts about it since we didn't have a review copy to get out the gate. But Joe Shop's review did just go live yesterday?
Yesterday, as of recording, yes.
Yesterday as of recording. So you can check out his thoughts on it. I'll talk about that all in the beginning. But what are your two thoughts on it, since you've had a lot more time with it than me, and I'll get into my experience in a bit.
Do you want to go first?
It's been a weird generation. I have beaten the game, so I have done the championship. I haven't done the post-game yet, because I like breeding and catching lots of Pokemon. But
that's the end game.
It is completely the end game. Although there are other things that other people. I've never been into competitive, and I've never been into like breeding the perfect Pokemon. Really, it's just about completing my decks and making lots of friends and making curry for my little Dragapult. So, that's where we are at the moment. But Sword and Shield are as good as any other Pokemon game at the base. Like, I really enjoyed Galar, and in particular in the feature I focused a lot on Galar as a region, because I do think, had it been, I didn't say this specifically, had Galar been bigger, like it looks big, but it's not as big as I think I need it to be or want it to be, it would have been incredible. And I love how it references England. It's very jokey with all of its English tropes, we all drink tea and, all say mum with a U and, oh, crumbs, I lost this gym battle. That's not good, is it? And the football focus, obviously, soccer for everybody else. But, and like the sports stadiums, it's all great. Like, Sword and Shield are all really positive experiences, and actually just sitting down to play it with my friends is one of the best things about it, because it's one of the few games that all of us get at the same time. And it's one of the few games we can all sit down, play it together in the same room, on the TV, on the handheld, and just talk about our experiences. And it's the one game where we can all universally share all the stupid things that we do, like the stupid nicknames we give our Pokemon, or, oh, I caught this one, and, oh, I got shiny, and things like that. But it's been joyful to play it this time. But my difficulty with Sword and Shield, I don't know if it's enough from Sun and Moon. Sun and Moon made a lot of innovations, and Sword and Shield carries those over. But Galar and Sword and Shield, they're Switch games, and I don't think they would feel out of place on a 3DS, other than the graphical upgrades and I think Gigantamaxing. But it doesn't feel like a huge jump. And I don't know whether I was expecting a huge jump. It's difficult, because I'm still processing how I feel about Sword and Shield. Like, it's weird, because Pokemon... I love Pokemon, and I love Sword and Shield. And even an average Pokemon game is a good game. But I'm still kind of in that honeymoon period where I've loved a lot of stuff, but I'm still trying to process all my feelings and about the whole thing. It's been unusual, but, like, it's not negative, and I hope, like, maybe talking with you two might bring some stuff out or something, because I'm still kind of in the middle. Like, I love it, but I'm also disappointed in some aspects, I would say. Like, I'm kind of mixed, because I love it and just have some issues, and I'm still processing how I feel about Sword and Shield overall, and I'm just hoping that maybe... I don't know. Obviously, Greg, I know you're a lot earlier than us, because you got to the game a little bit later. There's, like, a weird joy about Pokemon that I love, and I will always come out of the other end and think, oh my god, I'm so glad I played that. I'm going to play it for 50 hours more, 100 hours more. It's one of the only games I can do that with. But, like, I would be interested to see what everybody's thoughts are, because, yeah, I think my main issue is that it doesn't feel like enough of a jump between Generation 7 and Generation 8 for me. Especially because it's a leap from a handheld console to a console. If that makes sense.
It does, and that's largely what Joe's reviews seem to say as well. And I'm seeing a bit of that. Like, I've only just defeated Milo from the Leaf Gym, Grass Gym, rather. Which, in my mind, what's the actor's name? The actor that played Wheatley in Portal 2.
Oh, Stephen Merchant?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear his voice for Milo's voice.
Yeah.
Let's see it.
That is interesting.
Yeah, like, physically they don't match up, but, like, he just seems like, oh, hello there. Come fight me in my grass gym. You know, whatever. A terrible rendition of his accent.
I thought we said we weren't doing British accents today.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alana. I'm kidding.
Wait, what?
Sorry.
Hey, I was attacking you, not Alana.
I twisted it. Deflect blame is the Canadian thing to do. I don't know.
But you're right, like, you point that out, voice acting is a massive thing that's missing, and it feels weird this time, for the first time.
Yeah, like, it's not make or break for me, but there's a part of me that kind of wanted it, especially for a game. Yeah, that's such a different world. I feel like it would have lent to it, but I also can see that maybe they're trying to keep budgets to a minimum after putting so much into elevating the production value of the game as a whole. Yeah. And that seems to be largely what was focused on, as you were saying and what Joe was saying, because there's a definite bump up in the quality of the world, how big it is, how lush and vibrant all the Pokemon designs are, and your characters, how they move, everything. Music is great. I'm in love with the UI myself. I think the UI is fantastic. I didn't play Sun and Moon. I imagine it's similar in some ways, like they iterated on that and kept it going.
Yeah, pretty much.
But I just love how everything's very clean and clear and crisp. Once you've discovered a Pokemon, it'll tell you, like, this thing is effective, not effective, super effective. All the information is much more accessible and a lot less cumbersome. That being said, I am annoyed whenever I do, like, the online function to, like, I want to trade cards, for example. And then finally I get a card swap, and then it cancels. I have to go back into that menu to start searching again. I think it would have been great if they just prompted you, like, do you want to search for more after you got it, as opposed to having to go back in and restart the process. Just that extra 2 or 3 steps could have been cut out a little smarter, but small triflings of saving me 30 seconds or whatever. obviously that all adds up and it's a hindrance, but it's not the end of the world. And you can see how it is very, not railroady, but like everything feels very handed to you.
Yeah. It's less so than other gens, I think, but...
Okay, I don't remember it being like that in X and Y, but...
X and Y was weird. I feel like... I mean, X and Y suffer in other ways, personally, but... I don't really remember too much about the beginning of the game, but I feel like X and Y was maybe a little bit more handholdy, especially because I think it was one of the first... It was either X and Y or Sun and Moon that introduced the is this attack effective or not kind of thing. Like, previous games didn't tell you that.
I think it was X and Y, or sorry, Sun and Moon, I think, started doing that in the prompting and such. But X and Y introduced, a bit of a new, cleaner UI for sure, especially having the two screens to work with, similar to, like, it just kind of refined what Black and White had done on the DS. And with this one, though, everything seems very handed to you and obvious, but I do like also there's a lot of stuff to find. I think that's fun. Like, exploration is very well rewarded. Poking around in little corners and stuff, and obviously you got a bit of that back in the day too, but it wasn't as like, I think it was only just like you would find little Pokeballs, but now you got those little twinkling bits that you're just like, oh, I didn't catch that, but I'm glad I was looking, and now I found like some Stardust, or I found a few heals or whatever. But there is a lot of like very conveniently placed, like, oh, me and my sister are just standing here by this mine letting you heal your Pokemon, cool. Whereas it saves you running all the way back to town or stocking up on stuff. So there's that. As always, money doesn't come as readily so far that I've seen. But again, if I'm wandering around the wild area more, maybe I'll find more stuff.
Yeah, the wild area is a bounty for money. You get a lot of NPCs give you items that you can sell, and we're talking items that sell for probably 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 Pokédollars up.
Nice. Pokédollars. So, I also think that basically what this game is doing is just them... I find Pokemon has always been sort of similar to the development process of like Final Fantasy, where each generation they try and iterate it a bit and try some new stuff and see what lands and what doesn't, like small refinements that are unique to that version, but fundamentally a lot of it's still the same. Mm-hmm. I mean, Final Fantasy definitely has pushed those boundaries more, I would argue. But I feel like they always have like some new gimmick. They're just trying to see what sticks, and then if they can try it out in a different way or not, kind of thing, in future generations or not. So I am hoping, like what you've said, what Joe's Chop said in his review, that this is just going to be a launch point for future generations. I
think so. And that's the same issue I think I had with X and Y, is that it felt like a bridge game, because Sun and Moon are superior to me, and even Black and White I prefer to Diamond and Pearl, and those predecessors are all the first games on that system. Again, I love them all, but I just have more nitpicks that add up on those ones than I do with the follow-up. So, yeah, I think Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield are definitely like bridge games, like Generation 9, or the third game will be the one that goes, oh, here we go, we've like got it, we've nailed it.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because it almost makes consumers want to be wary and be like, maybe I'll just hold off for a couple more generations and let them perfect this. But at the same time, you're like, you want to be in on the craze of it and the trading and everything like that too. So it's hard to stay away from. But I don't know, I'm so far enjoying it, but I can see where it is very simple. And that's also begs the big question too. A lot of us have these criticisms, like the story's simple, the gameplay's easy. This world's a bit too small. We're also in our 30s, and mid-20s. Like, Gwen will probably have a very different experience. Like, Gwen still hasn't even finished Sun and Moon because she has struggled with a few battles because, she started playing that when she was 6, 7, 8 and doesn't have the grasp. So, yeah, with Gwen and with kids, I think it'll be a very different outlook on the game as a whole, and we'll see the experience very differently, which is, I know fans of our podcast were possibly hoping this would be another episode with Gwen on it, seeing as it's Pokemon, and I was really hoping to get her on, but she's in school. These are school hours, so unfortunately taking her out of school just to be on a podcast does not count. She missed a bunch to Disneyland as it was, so I would like to get her on another time when we do record in the evening or on a weekend, though, because she'll have thoughts, but she's also not that far in, because again, we are away, so she's gotten to it later as well. I'm imagining her dad picked up Sword at launch because I thought he was intent on doing it, but she's been playing a bit of Shield. So I'm not sure how far along she is anyways. So she was roughly keeping pace with me. So we shall see. But she hasn't played it since we got back home yet. Since she's come back over to our house yet. So she's, I think, only just got registered at the main place in Moto. What's the name of it?
Motorstoke.
Motorstoke, thank you.
Yeah.
So we shall see where she's at. But I'm excited to trade with her and all that sort of stuff. What starters did you both go with?
Score Bunny.
Nice.
Ooh, Sobble.
Ditto. Sobble was the one for me as well. My best friend.
Crybabies.
Yeah, well, he needs to be protected. That's why we went Shield.
He's definitely not a crybaby when he evolves.
No,
God.
he becomes an emo teenager.
No,
then,
he becomes a spy.
Yeah, he becomes...
Oh, the final version?
Salamander James Bond.
Slick.
It is literally Gex.
Yeah, oh my god.
Yes.
I hadn't thought about that. Oh no,
I haven't thought about that game for years.
There you go.
Well, it's funny, my best friend Pat was just launching up his game, and I was on the phone with him, and he was just getting started and picking his starters, and he was just kind of like, well, I think the monkey's out, but I'm not sure between Score Bunny or Sobble, and he was kind of weighing back and forth, and I was like, well, Pat, here's the thing, consider this. If you do go with Grookey, you'll have that grass monkey, that funky monkey. And he's like, oh man, he's like, you just sold
Done.
it. That's it, done. He's like the dark horse. So now he has grass monkey, that funky monkey, going through Galar, and he's, I think, gonna hopefully name all his Pokemon as best he can to Beastie Boy references. Apparently,
Oh no.
we'll see how that goes.
Can
brings
you
up
do 400 Beastie Boy references?
Right.
Oh yeah, towards the 300s, you're really gonna have to start kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel, and
Right.
you're gonna have a Pokemon called like Five Burrows and stuff like that.
It just depends on how far he wants to go with collecting as well. Like he's always a pretty. I'll be shocked if he finishes it, because he is not a completionist ever. It's always been frustrating. But for me,
If he
as
gets-
a friend,
If he gets a Garbodor though, he has to call it Hello Nasty.
Yes.
I hope so.
Yes.
I will be. Yeah, I'm curious to see how that goes. Which begs the question: like, what is your naming conventions for you two?
None.
Just
I
whatever strikes you at the time.
I don't nickname them.
You monster!
Oh.
No,
They're just things to you.
No, I just like I guess it's kind of weird, but I just like their names, so I can be like, go Score Bunny, or go Dragapult, go Corsola. I don't know. I
No,
don't
actually,
really
I
nickname
appreciate
them.
that. No worries.
Yeah.
Do you have any fun naming conventions, Alana?
So, this generation, I decided I was going to name everything after food. Everything. Food or
Delicious.
drinks. So the starters are all named after tea. So we've got Peppermint the Sobble. I have Chamomile the Score Bunny. And my Grookey will be called Matcha.
I'd buy it.
So cute.
And then we have silly names. This came from a joke because I accidentally, for 4 gens, gave all the lizard Pokemon food names. So I had a Crocodile in Gen 5 called Crumpet. And then I had a Heliolisk from Gen 6 called Custard. And then Salazzle is called Licorice. So I thought, let's just do it for everything. My favourite nickname this gen so far has got to be my Dragapult, who is called Noodle, because she's got a big noodly tail. Dragapult is so adorable and so goofy.
I
And
look
I
forward
love
to
the
seeing
little...
it.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's this generation's pseudo-legendary, so
Very
it's
cool.
pretty fantastic. It's pretty hard to get hold of, but it's worth it.
So far, the hardest one for me to capture was Wobbuffet. I
Wobbuffet
threw
is
so
a
many
nightmare.
stupid Pokeballs at that thing last night, but I finally got it.
Yay.
I love the Wobs.
Yes, me too.
Yeah.
I haven't had anything too crazy for my names. My Sobble's name was Samson. I just like the vibe of Samson Sobble, and then it just made me want to have everything like pretty much an alliteration. So I've just kind of kept running with that. So I have Jolie, Joltik. What's my Mudbray? I've got like Mortimer Mudbray. Just stuff like silly, dumb things like that. And sometimes they kind of work, and sometimes they don't. I've got Gruffles the Growlithe. and
Oh.
just cute things like that. And yeah, sometimes it's very cute. Sometimes it's just very like mundane. Like, I was like who else have I got? My Yamper's name was Yeller, which comes with its own baggage. If anyone has seen the film back in the day. And I got my first shiny I've ever gotten, which is Rudy.
I can't believe this. Oh my god.
Oh, I wonder what its final evolution looks like shiny.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's very cool. I've seen it, but I don't have one.
Rookie D's cute and gold, and then now I've got it upgraded to Corvusquire, and it's all shiny and silver. So yeah, I'm wondering if the Corviknight will be gold again, or if it'll be silver, or what the deal is. So I'm excited for that. But I've never gotten a shiny before, so that was kind of fun. I've got Wilbur Wooloo. Wilbur Wooloo is one of my favorites too.
Nice.
So I've just kind of been running with that. But yeah, we haven't really gotten to your thoughts, Joe. What have you been? What's your experience so far with Shield?
It's probably my least favorite in the series, but I still enjoy it quite a lot. So in terms of background stuff, I do like competitive battling stuff, tournaments, etc. And I've so kind of coming at it from that perspective, the whole Pokedex thing, like the whole Dexit controversy, is really annoying. But I will say that there are like my top five Pokemon of all time all aren't in this game, which kind of sucks. And it kind of limits the options for mono-type teams. Like I run mono fairy type teams, but so it kind of limits that. But the Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing, I'm not sold on it yet. It feels kind of weird and hollow. I think it's kind of the how there's that sort of sinister swirl above the Pokemon when they do it, though, I think is cool. Also, during the gym battles, when the gym leader's last Pokemon Dynamaxes, have either y'all noticed how weird the music gets?
I love it. It's the crowd chant in time with the music, and I adore it.
It is that, eh? Yeah, I thought so. It's really neat.
But it's not quite like it sounds just slightly off. Like it sounds slightly off key, and it just reminds me of like something from the Nier soundtrack or something, in kind of like a little terrifying way. So I felt like the early towns in the game were a bit hollow. They didn't feel like they had much personality and such. As the game goes on, though, and you get to some other places like the I can't remember the Tangle Forest. I can't remember.
The Tanglewood Gleam, and
yes,
and then Ballonella, which is the fairy type gym. That's incredible, isn't it? I think Stolonside was my moment with like the market town, and then you go through the forest, and they do start to get really interesting. But yeah, I agree. I think it starts off slow.
Yeah, early on it didn't really feel like it had much of an identity to it, but it develops that a bit. And yeah, of course, the story is bog standard. Nothing. I've never seen a Pokemon story that's been as good as the black and white and black 2 white 2 games.
That seems to be the standard I'm seeing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A lot of bad designs in Gen 5, in my opinion. But really great story and some really great battle mechanics. So I like it. I like it a lot, and I'll be, I'm already working on my team and kind of having to get away from monotype stuff because of the reduced Pokedex, and that's all right because I'm kind of getting Pokemon competitive ready that I haven't before, like Flygon.
Cool.
So
it's pushing you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's cool for me to not fall back on Pokemon that I always have in the games, like a Dragonite that I've had for like 10 years that I've just kept transferring from game to game because it's so good.
Which I think is a very cool thing, that you can literally
Yeah.
grow up with your Pokemon. But again,
Yeah.
it's unfortunate to lose that. It is kind of neat that you're starting out with other stuff that you've never really given a second look to because you've been so much with your comfort zone.
Yeah. So, I mean, overall,
If that makes sense.
like yeah, no, totally. I mean, so overall, like, I really like the games. It's probably the 8th gen, these games are probably my least favorite in the mainline series so far. Um, but I love Pokemon so much that it's still a great time.
It's one of those things where you don't want to say you have a favorite child, but you could if you had to, but even still, you like them all.
Yeah, I like them all. I gotta catch them all. But also Heart Gold, Soul Silver.
Yep. All day, every day. Even original Gen 2.
The platonic ideal.
Right. I love the identity of the language, though. Like, even though there isn't any voice work, it's still very clear through the text and everything that this is the Queen's English speaking.
Okay.
The speaking
The Queen, correct.
area.
It's so weird though that at a time when even Dragon Quest is having voice work in its game, that Pokemon is still holding.
All the voice actors are busy doing the Pokemon voices, not the actual.
Yeah. I also find it really funny that Pikachu and Eevee and Meowth are the only 3 Pokemon that have cries that match their cartoon equivalent, and all the others just have the blips.
And I also find it interesting too that there's no voice acting. You couldn't name Hop to have your rival's name anymore, which I don't think you could do in Sun and Moon either, could you?
Yeah, you couldn't do it in X and Y either. You've not been able to do it for a few gens.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if that's...
Because you've got 3 rivals in X and Y.
Yeah, and I'm also wondering if that also feeds into the show. Like, they want to keep the parallel a lot stronger as opposed to getting kids... I don't think they would be confused since they're the ones who changed the name, but it's just... I miss the days of battling my best friend Pat,
I don't know. I don't think Hop is in the anime yet, actually.
Oh, really?
So maybe he will be eventually, yeah.
Wouldn't be surprising.
I think the Sword and Shield equivalent anime, which I don't think is Sword and Shield yet, has only just started airing in Japan. So I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I was going to say that I really enjoyed, it kind of hit me when I was playing yesterday at one point. I like how all the random encounters kind of started with a very brief, "Who's that Pokemon?" kind of moment where they're like just the silhouette and you're like, "Oh, it's going to be a Wooloo. Oh, I don't know what this one is," or whatever. And I think it's really cool. I don't know if I can't remember if it did that in X and Y and such. But it's something maybe it did start in the 3D ones. I can't remember, but I do like how there's that little kind of fun tie-in of that. It's a nice nod.
Yeah. I like as well how we have this balance between, everyone was a bit worried that, because Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee didn't have random encounters, and actually, their Sword and Shield don't have random encounters either, but they have the overworld encounters, and also they have the little exclamation marks that pop up, but you still have to go over to it, or that has to come to you. It's not just like a random, you're attacked kind of thing. You still see the exclamation mark pop up.
It's just random what it could be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't see it until you're in the combat.
Yeah, so there's still a mix of that excitement. I don't know. I think this happy medium of the combat convention is great, and I would like to see it evolve in this direction. I think it's neat. It can be annoying being chased by Pokemon sometimes, but when you're just like, I don't want to encounter you, I want the exclamation mark. Get away from me.
But do you not enjoy being chased by 8 feral bewares at all? That's so fun. There's this tiny island in the middle of the wild area, and there are 8 bewares, and every single time they single me out, and I'm like, no, please don't. And they just chase me, and I'm like, I'm going on the water now. So I go on the water on my bike, and they have to stop. So I'm like, but it's so fun. It's like Xenoblade. My favourite thing about Xenoblade is going up to level 80 monsters at level 10 and dying. This is very similar in the wild area, just antagonizing all the high level Pokemon.
Kiting them around.
And just being like, bye.
Have either of you done the Pokeball Plus thing yet, where you take a Pokemon with you?
No, I don't have one.
Mm-mm. I have one from Pikachu and Eevee, and I wanted to do it, but I realized it was dead, so I want to try it again. I was just curious. I'm like,
your Pokemon was dead?
Yes. No, the Pokeball was dead. It needs to be charged, which my brain obviously was like, right, that's a thing, because it hasn't been used in ages, so it does need to be recharged. So I want to give that a shot if it's kind of like a step counter thing, and if it gets experience or something while you're taking it with you. Because I know part of it is it can find random items, I guess, while you're out and about. I'm just wondering if it just does that the longer you're out, if you get better items or what the deal is. I was curious if anyone has explored that yet. But at any rate, it's, even for Pokemon, even if it's a quote-unquote bad Pokemon, it's still good Pokemon, and it's still a good game. And I'm glad, well, if they have room to grow. I'm very grateful for the team, for the work they put in, that they pushed through a lot of the negative press that was coming up at the beginning, and that they have largely a good success, because it's being well regarded pretty much at every outlet.
Oh yeah, it's still a wonderful game, and it's definitely not a bad Pokemon at all, but like, we nitpick because we love and we want to see this series grow, but obviously it has to cater to a number of different audiences, and Game Freak, as popular as they are, and Pokemon is the biggest media franchise in the world, you've got to think, like, it makes most of its money off of the merchandise, the cards, the toys, the TV show, and things like that. But Game Freak are not a huge studio. They're not, like, they're part of the Pokemon company Nintendo, but they're not experienced at making these console games. Like, Little Town Hero, obviously, it was a bit of a disappointment that came out in October. And I think it shows a bit of their inexperience, but, like, they're still hot in this game. Like, Sword and Shield, why do I keep my gens mixed up? Sword and Shield are still extremely good. Like, I still love them. I think the new Pokemon are all brilliant. I don't dislike any of them, even the fossils. I've got a special place for those scary little mixtures.
Oh my god.
They are certainly an idea, and I love the concept behind them.
Alana, they got walloped with the ugly stick though. Like, oh my god.
They did, yeah. I feel so bad for them.
It's definitely a challenge, I'd say, for as they continue growing the series, to keep making interesting, new, unique, exciting Pokemon. Like, my Yamper just evolved into Boltund, and there's a lot of things I like about it, but at the same time, there's things about it's just like, it kind of looks like Usain Bolt as a dog, and like, just like wearing, like, it's like a dog wearing a tracksuit kind of thing. It's interesting.
Boltund reminds me of Bolt from the Disney film.
Yeah, I see that too. And so there's parts of it I like, and parts of it I'm like, but like, again, like, they're trying to make it not be just straight up an animal with some different colors, right? Like, so they have to innovate here and there, and sometimes they hit, sometimes they miss, but I still love it. I love his endearing eyes. He looks so goofy. But at any rate,
they can move away from electric dogs, because they've had Luxray, they've had Manectric,
right?
They have Boltunds.
Yeah.
No one will ever beat Luxray either.
Luxray is a
Manectric already beats Luxray, so it's all good.
No, I love Luxray. Manectric is cool as well.
I enjoy Yamper. I just want to pat its wiggly little butt.
I know. I mean, I love dogs anyway, so this is an easy win for me.
Right. And and I enjoy, like, the interaction with some of the other players. I haven't done a lot of it with any of the team and trading, and I'm really excited to get into that. I just haven't had the spare time when everyone else has been online. But I like doing the joint camping. I think that's kind of neat. I've seen that with a little bit of, I don't know if it's NPCs or, like, when you're online, if they're on along the trail anyways.
They're NPCs on the trail. Okay. Yeah, later on you can use them as flight points, so you can use the Corviknight taxi to fly to routes.
Cool.
So, yeah, it's really useful.
But it's a nice taste of what that is, so that's cool. And it's kind of funny when your Pokemon comes up, it's like, I'm afraid of this trainer. You're like, oh, what did they do to you? Like, don't be afraid of the trainers, they're nice. Also, I gotta say, so far my favorite trainers are the two Poke Kids. They're just so cute how they animate in the background. The little Eevee kid wiggling her Eevee tail, and then she, like, howls like an Eevee when she, like, commands it to do a move, and it's the cutest thing. And, like, the Poke Kid in the Pikachu suit tries to, like, imitate the Pikachu's, like, Thunderbolt attack motion. I think those little touches are really nice. It's cool seeing the trainers in the background. I think that's very cool too. Anyways, it's a very neat game, and I'm excited to explore more of it. But moving along from this, because I know Joe's got some Thanksgiving plans to run off to. I don't want to keep you too much longer, my good friend, but I appreciate your insight on this, and I look forward to trading with you both. And give me some updated league card codes, please.
Oh yes, I've redone mine. I have made me look like me, so I'm very happy right now.
Yeah.
Mine is basically doing a JoJo pose, like from
Yes!
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Are you either of you? What's your uniform of choice? Have you stayed with the classic, or do you have a team favorite, or like not a team favorite, a type favorite that you've gone to?
Mine stayed classic, but it's only because I haven't figured out how to put on the fairy one yet.
Yeah, you can't wear them in gym battles. You have to stay classic for gym battles, unfortunately.
Oh, well, then what's the point?
They're just costumes.
So you can just wear them in the world, but not in the actual gym
Yeah.
battle. That's strange.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a bit disappointed. I think that, and I'd love to be able to change my bike uniform as well. You could change the colours of them, but I wish you could pick your own bike uniform, because, yeah. I'm just picky. I like fashion. I like to dress characters up and spend money on clothes.
And they've got definitely a lot of choices in this one, which is great. But we want more.
There's so much. I've spent so much money on clothes. It's ridiculous.
It's okay. At least it's fake Poké dollars and not real money. You can get your spending out in digital money and not cry about your bank account as much.
Exactly.
We don't have really any fan questions. There was a fun discussion going on in Discord, though, about kind of like the walking sim and how people kind of complain about that, but at the same time, is it worthwhile putting combat into those games if there's really like kind of like no point to it, kind of thing? Like, you know, like there's a bit of combat in Death Stranding, isn't there?
Yeah, it definitely has a combat system. It's kind of like a simplified like Batman Arkham style.
And do you feel it's rewarding? Does it serve the gameplay and the story, or do you feel like they just kind of put it in because like we just need to have combat because that's what people want?
I mean, it does serve a kind of narrative function. You can participate in combat. I avoided it as much as possible though, because like my character is a porter. He doesn't fight. He doesn't, you know, I tried to avoid shooting guns or anything like that because that's just not who my character is. He repeatedly just says, "I'm a porter." So I decided to play him like that.
I like that role-playing element.
Yeah, because it's a role-playing game.
Yeah. But that's great. Like, it's good that
you play a role.
a game, play a role, and I like that it doesn't encourage or discourage it either way. But I'm glad that it feeds into the narrative as opposed to just them trying to appease people who want action in the game for action's sake. Because like if there's no tangible reward, would be it experience, character growth, or that it's it's a necessary part of making the game fun, then like there's really no point in having soulless combat, as I was kind of talking about on the Discord with these folks. Like I don't know, how do you feel about that yourself, Alana?
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I don't want combat in a game if it doesn't need it. Like, there's things like Firewatch and things like heavily narrative driven stories that they don't really have any. It's all pretty linear. Like Firewatch, if anyone's played it, very much plays out its story in sequence, and there's no fighting, there's no anything, there's no enemies to fight anyway. It's just a man and a woman and their struggles together and their conversations over a phone, and you walk and you do things and you pick things up and you go back. Or things like Everybody's Gone to the Rapture or other games like that. They stand alone because they're like everything else is so strong. Like, I don't need combat if it's not necessary. Like, sometimes it's a hindrance. Like, why stick something in there if it works without it?
Yeah, because it just feels like they're just trying to pad the experience out at that point, because they don't feel the rest of it holds up, I guess.
Yeah, I actually did not know there was combat in Death Stranding, so I learned something.
Yeah, for the most part, you can ignore it. It's only when I think the game kind of betrays its mechanics when you have to do it. So
okay, right, yeah, because it didn't strike me as a game that should or does need it. Like, there's bits where you when in the trailers where you're sneaking past things, and I thought, okay, but if there are parts where you have to fight, then
people want your.
It'd be interesting to see.
Okay,
people want a baby.
They do, and it's ridiculous. That is all I will say about it, because the most rock dumb ridiculous part of the game is the people who want the packages. Won't go into it, but
okay.
I'm excited to hear more about that on another. When we're not trying to be spoiler free. At any rate, fans of RPG Fan, thank you so much for continuing to be our fans and listening to our podcasts. We have many of them. I was remiss last time. I forgot to shout those out because I was just trying to wrap things up really quickly. But I do want to say, you like hearing about old games or cool gaming conventions that we've explored over the years? Go listen to Retro Encounter. Mike Solosi hosts that more often than not, and if not, there's other people coming in to help him out when he doesn't have the time to play 60 million games, but sometimes he just powers through it all. But there's a lot of great game journals, and there's some quiz shows. Isn't there another one coming up, or it just went through? I forget now.
Second quiz show will probably be out by the time either just after this goes live or just before, and I definitely make an idiot of myself on it.
So you've got that to look forward to, both Alana being a dope and for all the fun questions he throws at us. I'm kidding, Alana. You're lovely. You probably don't make an idiot of yourself. And I'm glad that fell flat. That was great. Super confident of me. No.
Yep,
no, I was laughing. It was just a quiet laugh.
Okay. I'm glad. I was like, because you're not. You're wonderful. Also, we have May It Rest for the moment, but hopefully we'll rise from the ashes once more. Rhythm Encounter. And that's out there as well. So you've got some choices in your podcast consumption. And also, I should probably mention, once again, our partnership with Phoenix Edge RPG Podcast. Similar to us, but they definitely explore a lot more of the news and stuff going on than we explore here at Random Encounter. So it's nice that we have like these 4 big podcasts that kind of all cover different things. And I mean, I like the Phoenix Edges here now because it takes a lot of stress off me because I keep wanting to find ways to inject the news. And now I'm like, I don't need to because they are much more informed and on it than I am. And that's great because Hat and Eric are lovely humans. So we've got all that going on. And otherwise, you can find us at Twitter at RPGFancom and also on Instagram at the same. Steph runs a tight ship and Joe is always there to be reached out to, as well as the rest of the team. Everyone's super gung-ho about growing our population, and we've been doing great too. We've hit a couple big milestones recently for followers, haven't we, Joe?
Yeah, we hit 7,000 followers on Twitter
Whoop, whoop.
a few days ago.
Woo!
So thanks, everybody. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in and continuing to, enjoy the podcast. Let me know what you think of it at podcast@rpgfan.com on the old email. And until next time, we'll see you then. Or hear you then. Or you'll hear us. Whatever. Bye.
Bye.
I thought Tidus was the one in Final Fantasy VII.
No, that was Clued.
God.
Kludstriff.
Clued.
Kludstriff. Zidane. Tribble. Oh my gosh. Somewhere Stephen Meyerink is screaming at me. Anyways.
Yeah.